Hello, everyone. Welcome to Product Calgary's Coffee Talks. My name is Anita Panchanatham. Today, I'm very glad and happy to welcome Dr. Bart. Dr. Bart is a very passionate product manager and a product teacher. He has been helping a number of people break into product management. He has helped 100 people land a product management job in the last year, and his mission is to help 150 people this year. His Udemy course has about 9,000 students, which is exciting. And I also love all of his LinkedIn posts because everything is very action oriented, action steps that you can take. So without any further delay, I will hand it over to Bart. And if you have any questions, do not hesitate to jump in and ask any questions you have. Over to you, Bart.
Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. Well, hello everyone. This is a coffee type meeting, so there will be no slides. I don't have a coffee because it's 5 p.m. for me. My throat is hurting, so it's just ginger tea here to get me through the night, so to say. And I have my chat open, and seriously, I don't want to have a 30-minute monologue. Just speak up, write on chat. Let me meet you. Let me talk to you. Let me address your concern. Call me on bad advice if you think I'm giving one. I'll be more happy than just talk to the camera for alone, and I'll enjoy having some fun with you guys. So I have just a piece of paper to help me through the session, so that I don't forget to say anything I planned. And before I begin, any questions to me, they don't have to be on the session particularly. We had some fine questions before we began. And I'm happy to kick it off with someone of you telling me something. I see Amit unmuted himself.
Fun question. What's your favorite product?
Oh, can I say Skype? Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be that far from true because I've had to rediscover Skype as a PM, and I was surprised how good it was when I started using it again, because we were using Skype as my first communicator in my first remote position way back, and at some point it got so bad and so messy that we just dropped it in favor of Slack as a company. And I had a very lingering bad memories of Skype getting worse and worse. But when it came to product manage it, use it day to day, I discovered that it got back on some bad decisions. And for example, today I was forced in a few Teams meetings, and I can say I was pretty frustrated. And I'm not also a fan of Zoom, so I'm bleeding internally that we are not on Skype right now. But still, I don't think Skype is good enough right now for this kind of event. So, okay. But what would be my favorite product? I would say YouTube. I think it took me a while to make the ranking in my head, but the way YouTube created a platform for everyone to speak up that is well maintained in terms of copyrights, hate speech. You don't hear about YouTube being the source of some wrongdoings. You hear about wrong things on Twitter, on Facebook, but YouTube somehow is not source of all evil in our world. And I love to YouTube myself, as my channel is not that big, of course, but it's still like looking at those growing numbers, looking at those analytics, treating this as my product, as my channel, always helps me to flex in those product management muscles outside the normal day-to-day work. So let's then begin the session actual, because you are all here to find out how to land your dream PM career job. So how many people in the chat don't have a product management position yet? Just type in no or yes in the chat. I want to see 11 answers or 10. How many are there? 16. So I won't begin until I see at least 10. So, no, me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I'm seeing engaged people on the chat. I'm so happy. Good. Okay, so I see that most of you don't have a product management position yet. So, well, let's begin there. What can you do day to day to become a product manager? Let me assume that you are around university level or like very junior people who have their first careers, because transforming someone that has like 10, 15 years of experience into a PM out of the sudden can be quite a different challenge. So let's start with my favorite way, which I call the unicorn way. This is the most fun and easy way where there is an advertisement that asks for junior as executive. APM would be assistant product manager, and you apply, you land the job, and there you go, you are there. And that hardly happens. That's like 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000, and you still have to do amazingly on the apply process, on your resume, and have what it takes to be one of those unicorns, because hundreds and thousands of people will apply to those positions, will want those internships or junior positions. But say that this is our goal, that we have brilliant, beautiful, special people here on the chat, and your job is to wow those recruiters, is to present your best case that you are the right person to be the next junior product manager. And let me tell you, this is actually quite fun, because I used to work on an integration project with a person that was maybe 23, maybe 24, right after college, directly into a junior PM, promoted within 2 years to normal PM. That person would have been like 15, 14 years younger than I. And on some like casual meeting, like just discussing our experiences, and it was so fun to hear her talking about her product manager position. That's a dream job for many, that took so much energy for me to achieve. That is a very desired one. Talk like, I don't know, you'd be an entry-level accountant that's not sure that this is the position that he or she will keep in the next 10 years. And the perspective of the person who managed to succeed in this way, the casualty of it was plain entertaining. So I hope that you will be one of those people someday. And to do that, first and foremost, make this your hobby. Spend literally 20, 30, maybe 60 minutes a day just to read up on the position. Read stories about different products. Find the key elements that turned, say, Amazon from a small company that took a gamble that people will want to use e-commerce and buy online, and now changed into literally a company that sends people to space. And that's something that, in accumulation, if you read about different aspects, or you find one aspect of product management that you like, and then dig into it within a time of a week, 2, and you only focus on that, trust me, this information will accumulate in time. So without really knowing, you will start to become an expert, because you'll be in a position where you'll start seeing similarities, patterns. Those patterns will later be usable on a job interview, because you will be seeing questions that you can apply stories that you know and try to come up with a very good and creative answer. That will be also the theory, like what an MVP is, how to craft one, what are the types of MVP, that if you read time and time and time again, will stick to your brain. And why do I call it a hobby? Because I don't know about you guys, I hate learning. I hate learning for learning's sake. I always disliked that about myself, but I would never be able to learn a foreign language just in case it's useful in the future. I was able to learn a bit of Spanish when I lived in Spain, and some of that Spanish sticked with me. But to take a book, spend an evening and torture myself to gather new skills that may be useful, that improve me as a human being, nah, I'm not able to do that. And I have a strong suspicion that most of us, being people, we prefer to relax, we prefer to spend time casually, and after 8 days of 8 hours of university of work, hardly anyone has enough energy to have some serious education. That's why I'm calling it a hobby. You don't need to follow a strict curriculum. You don't need to be very serious about it. As long as it's something that you enjoy. First of foremost, enjoy. That it's not something that will get you slightly more depressed before the bed, right? If you don't want to do it one day, fine, it won't break anything. Just make sure that it's a habit, that you are always ready to find out more, and you can always take the easy road and, I don't know, download the Medium app and just read suggested product management blogs every day, or just Google YouTube product channels and see, subscribe to them and see what pops in, and be more passive recipient of that content, but still feed yourself content. Maybe that learning part is also a thing that may require some structure. Just grab a notebook and write stuff that you think are interesting enough to come back, that you should memorize, that resonate with you. But no knowledge, no skill will flourish if not cherished and used day to day. So, have you ever had an advice to build your own product? And maybe have a different question, and I want to see yes or no's in the chat again. Do you have something in your life, whether it's a website, whether it's an app or a blog or whatever, that you would consider yourself a product manager of? Go. Again, I refuse to continue until I see enough answers in the chat. And don't be shy, no is also okay. But I'm seeing already 5 yeses, so 5 more questions and we can continue. 5 more answers. Okay, so we are having a very distinguished crowd here, that I actually expected to see 9 no's or mostly no's, and I can see barely 1 no. And I won't point fingers, don't worry, but I think the person who said no now knows what he or she needs to do right after this webinar. So that breaks my narration, actually, because I wanted to tell you that you should do that, and since you're doing it, let me then focus on what will make this product not successful in terms of the product itself, but as a means of getting you your dream job, product management position. It's setting the right goals and applying product management practices. Your job with your product at this stage is not to create a startup that will grow into a company and pay your retirement. If you do that, kudos. That's awesome. And don't be afraid to switch careers to CEO from product manager. CEO will probably serve you better long term. But given that those probably are small scale and you started them because some talking head told you it will be useful, I'm another talking head that tells you that this is useful, and as long as you treat it as a learning exercise, that you have strong goals on your project or product, that you evaluate quite frequently, that you monitor the metrics you have identified in order to progress, to estimate whether it's successful, whether you're going the right direction or not, and make sure to phrase your successes and failures of the product with good stories that you can reuse during the job interviews. It's very important to know why you failed, whether those were bad assumptions, whether you just didn't have time to dedicate to increase the content or the value or whatever. As long as you, as a junior homemade product manager, knows what was happening, why it succeeded and failed, what were the key elements of that process, and you know what you would have done better if you had time, resources, or plain energy, it's a great success story that you can present of a person that didn't wait until someone gives him or her the right circumstances, but created those circumstances, that environment, for his or her own. Dante, I see you've raised your hand. Thank you. How can I help you?
Yes. So with that, then your first project that you can kind of demonstrate all these different skills. What is the most basic project you can think of that I can pick up and really nail home?
Blog post, blogging, telling people on something that you enjoy, maybe telling them about your product management journey, documenting them, and having goals that are connected to viewership, subscribers. This sounds like...
Oh, I see. Yep.
Yeah. So let's say I'm starting travel blog. My goal is to achieve 1,000 subscribers within a year. How do I achieve it? What blog provider do I use? Do I use a paid one or a free one? How do I get to my future subscribers? What are the channels? Is organic traffic enough? Do I need to advertise myself? And I'm not saying advertise as in buy Google ads. When I started my Udemy course, I didn't have any people who would believe in me like they do now. There was no social proof for the course. I had to go to different webinars and mention to people that there's a new course. Do you want to try it? I spoke with people directly. I found online groups of people of product management enthusiasts, and it was hard work getting the traction to get to my goals. And of course, creating any video content is much more work than creating a blog post that you, and it's less risky when you're writing, because here you can now see me with a good mic, with a good camera. But I started off using a mobile phone as my camera and a microphone that still gives me nightmares when I'm listening to any audio and record it with it. So, so this is like the one that I would recommend. But you can also do something like selling your pictures to stock photography. This is slightly easier and more difficult at the same time, because it's only about sending pictures. But at the same time, it's harder to set up goals because there's a big market of stock photography. So it might be hard to find the niche that will generate you the traffic that can be goalizable, that you can set goals for, that
Yep.
have meaning. So that's like the easiest ones that come to my mind.
Okay. So then following up with that, like I'm a marketer through and through. So if I am building my own personal content out, building my own personal brand, yes, I have the metrics for followers, or this is how I'm going to increase this certain amount, like my engagement rate, things like that. How do I more gear that towards product management so that I don't get siloed into marketing?
Well, if it's all a matter of framing, you can consider product manager as a product manager that has a goal of getting the
Yeah.
right traffic to the product itself.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you are data driven, as long as you think of it as a product, the product doesn't really have to be something physical, even electronic. The
Right.
product can be can be the funnel from people who might want to visit the product to people actually visiting it, and everything in between is your job. Is to choosing the right channel, is to, I don't know, minimizing the cost spent per click or per client. I would say that there's nothing wrong being proud of being a marketing person, because this is a good starter for a product management career. The principles are all the same. We are all data driven. We have hypotheses that we need to confirm or decline. There are experiments. There are A/B testing in marketing. In fact, I was using Facebook's AdSense, that's that called the ads campaigns, not to get people into the course, because those ads were not successful, but I noticed that I can test different thumbnails for the course with it, because the more successful ones got more clicks. So though Udemy doesn't give me A/B testing, I could use marketing to A/B test stuff for me in a way.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else while we are not on the main track of the presentation?
Hi. Quick question. You were mentioning testing names with A/B testing on Facebook ads. And I was wondering, what does that look like for someone who clicks on your ad? They get to the other side, but you don't have a product that you're actually selling. You're just testing the name. So did they just end up with a splash page that says, leave your email address or something, and you'll get updated once the course is initiated? Or how does that look like?
No, I had the
Lefty.
course running already, so it would lead them to the course. But though the clicks were in thousands, the Facebook audience didn't purchase or enroll any of the courses according to the numbers I saw. So I basically discovered that this is unhealthy for the course, because the purchase rate, the conversion from visit from the landing page to purchase, apparently it also drives the search results on the Udemy search page. So me buying traffic to visit the landing page of the course and not enrolling was actually also hindering the organic Udemy sales. So though I ended up with having what seems to be the optimal not name, but the thumbnail, the picture that represents the course, for a time I actually probably lost few students just because I wanted to see if Facebook ads will even work. They don't.
So I guess if you were to do that again, you might set up a web page that those ads would go to that wouldn't be your Udemy course. And then that way you wouldn't hinder that particular set of analytics, but you could still gather some A/B testing information on the ads themselves.
Yeah, that would be a go-to solution, unless I would I would risk the purchase rate getting a hit in case 10 months later, when the numbers went significantly up, maybe then the course would be more attractive to people who click from Facebook ads. But I hardly doubt. My experience now is that there aren't product management aspirants on Facebook. That doesn't seem to be the right way to do it. And the way I found myself now producing content on Medium, on YouTube, being active on LinkedIn with, thank you again for saying that, with actionable content, proves to be the right way to market what I have to offer. Otherwise, I think that if I put money into Facebook or Google Ads, that would be money burned, because there are actors that have much bigger budgets than me, and they will consume the traffic that perhaps might have been interested in the course. And I also don't need that, right? The way I position myself, and the way the positioning process can and should work, is that you adjust your product to people who might be interested in it. And I don't think people who are willing to spend $7,000 on a course are the right crowd for me, though I think that they will just save most of that money, in fact like 97%, if they first gave me a shot. But this is only my impression. I'm probably very wrong here, and there are also people who learn in a different way. And I think I spend much too much time talking about it, so let me moderate myself and put myself to a hold on this subject and ask Kunal what was his question.
Yeah, hi Bart. So basically, my question was to just get this thing clear again from you. Just to reiterate you that someone who is currently trying to break into a product role, is it more? It is a better approach for him to try and make a small project or a product rather than going for probably a few product management resources or books, or let's say some product tear downs or case studies. So what is your take on that?
You'd need both, because you can't just start a project like a cowboy and see what happens. The whole point is to gather the knowledge, gather the best practices, and then apply them with your project, so you can then transform them into success story of growth, and story of setting and meeting or failing the goals. Because otherwise you'll become more of an author or a code developer, and that's not what we want to do.
Got it. Probably at the end of this webinar, maybe you can share some resources that people who are trying to break into product can refer to.
Definitely. In fact, Okay, so this is all the resources I have, but this is just me, right? There is Diego Granados that we used to work together in Microsoft. Now he's in LinkedIn. He has awesome YouTube channel and a lot of great materials. There are product management mastermind group on LinkedIn that has very good materials happening. There is a core product management group on Facebook that also collects a lot of good enthusiasts, and that's just off the top of my head. She, I'm not sure if I spell her name correctly, but she is also senior product manager in LinkedIn, and she's a great influencer that has awesome materials to look for. Product Focus. This is a UK course provider that sells its services for, I think, £1,000, or at least it used to be £1,000 a few years ago. But they also have a lot of really, really good PDFs that are free, that help you start your journey. And in fact, this is how I started my journey. The product focus PDFs were the ones that helped me to change my mindset from a small startup self-taught product manager into something that I am today. That was like the push in the right direction for me.
I just wanted to maybe double click on the resources side of things for Kunal.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually researching the same aspect. Okay, what's the best way if somebody wants to get into product? Like, what's the best approach? And my impression is, the theory, all of that is there, but it's not as helpful. What seems to be the most helpful is like the practical experience of building and shipping a product. At least that's my impression. And I came across a program that I'm considering doing myself. It's like Collab Product Management Program. I think it's started by ex Microsoft product managers. I attended one of the webinars where Diego was a guest speaker as well. So that potentially could be one aspect. I think the cost is 2000 US dollars, but they do have promo codes every now and then. But that's something I did consider product school, but I think it's all theory. And my impression is the practical hands-on experience is more valuable. So that's where this collab
Yeah,
experiential program I saw came in.
it's always you have to always consider yourself, because some people will be happy with the asynchronous recorded videos. Some of them, frankly, will be too theoretical. Some of them will be actionable, but some people will better consume content when it's from a live human being in the same room. I know, for example, my wife can't stand any webinars or YouTube videos when she tries to learn something. And well, also the prices of meeting the living with a living person will be higher, because the room has to be rented, the instructor has to be paid, and it's all different. And I do agree with you that, of course, experience is the key that gets you hired. Of course, there is that dilemma of how can you get experience if I never get hired, and that's where your self-organized project comes in. But also, I did mention that there's a long way around to product management. To become product manager, you don't have to start as a junior. You can start from a different position, like from a code developer, designer, analyst. Those people are those positions are entry level. So you can just apply, and the companies will teach you, will help you to develop in those situations. Of course, you have to do some investment prior, but it's much easier to self-taught coding than to self-taught product management, at least in terms of conversion from acquired skill to a hiring process. And then you need to be able to be in a company that has product managers, that you will be working with those product managers, and that is open season for promotion to join them in the product ranks. So once you have settled well in your, let's say, temporary role, your jumping off point, you can always go to your manager, to HR, and say that your goal is to become a product manager. That means that you can hear two things. Either one, yes, we will invest in you, you are great, let's devise a development plan and in time get you to product management. The other way is, sorry, we need you as a developer. Then it's time to say goodbye, really. Find a company that will initially hire you for your current position, your current skill set, but in time we'll be happy to promote you to where you actually want to be. And that means that you'll have to work hard. If you get an approval for your future career track, that means that you still have to prove yourself. So everything you did as a unicorn, every advice there is applicable, and on top of that, you have to be your product manager's shadow. You have to be interested in his or her work, how she or he operates, and be always ready to jump in to help, to be the person the PM will delegate stuff to ease his or her efforts, that can help when PM is sick or on holidays, and just raise up to the occasion and work as a PM, at least temporarily. Just grab the opportunities to show that you are ready, that you can already do it, better or for worse, but it's a career spot you can find yourself in and excel. Of course, that has to come with the optimal performance at your older position, right? This is the additional effort you have to give from yourself above the 100% and the exemplary work you will be already doing. This is hard, but this is how you evolve. No one will promote you in any career track if you're just mediocre and you do your stuff. Career track is not a loyalty program. It's a reward for overachievers, and product managers, especially aspiring one, have to be overachievers, over communicators, over everything. And it gets easier once you're there, right? You have to then grow some distance. You have to be able to focus on the right stuff, and you can't go at 130% of your maximum forever. This is not how our bodies work, and at some point you will collapse. But fortunately, the 20s were built by whoever brought us to this world, so we can do more than we feel we can. And while you and me no longer, are in the 20s, it's your time to show what you're made of.
I have a question.
Yes.
Bataz. My question is, so I actually did that route. I built a product and actually built a company around it. The company didn't fully take off because I made some mistakes as a product manager / CEO. And I'm curious, what do you think is the best way to, if having that experience, how do you transition back into product management? Or am I just, would it make sense to just go big, go for being a CEO again, starting a whole company? What are some things, have you ever had a question or seen other product managers struggle with that question?
I worked with a person who failed at his startup and came back to product management. And let me find a video on it. I will answer your question directly now, but I know that these words can be forgettable. So I want you to have the answer that you can always call upon when you need. I'm leaving this in a chat right now. So you need to realize that you never stopped being a product manager. You just did product management plus with budgeting, with hiring, and lots of other stuff. And the fact that you know why your business didn't take off is another story on a product manager that knows what happened and what could have been done better. In fact, as you said, you started on with an old project that grew in that company. So you can do exactly the same as you would with a smaller project. Tell it from a product manager's point of view. Be honest and tell a story with a vision, with a strategy, with initial growth, and what was wrong with the strategy that stopped the startup from growing. And that should be enough. You already done more than an average product manager should be doing, so you should be considered a good candidate anyway. So that's failing at something doesn't discredit you. That it's just another story, and perhaps you had the right vision, strategy, everything was fine, but pandemic happened and no one could have predicted that. Or you lacked a single skill of being able to get funding for your startup when it needed it to kick off. So you can't beat yourself up and have self-doubt. What's done is done, and now you need to take what you did and use it, whatever was the past outcome, to progress you here and now. And that's not that hard. And you are in a better position than people with no experience or little experience. And of course, that some companies may not share my point of view. You can be rejected for multiple reasons, but I'm a strong believer that if you try, if you look for a product manager position, it's just a matter of few weeks and months before you land it.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you too. Would you happen to have any advice for someone in their early 30s and thinking of moving into product management? Hard to give any generic advice. I think that still being promoted inside a company is your best call, regardless of the age. I had an engineering manager colleague. I have an engineering manager colleague who was just promoted to product manager just a few weeks ago in Skype. And this person is taking over one of my previous two teams. I now have a single team, so I have more time to focus on one. Two teams is far too much for me. And this is person who's late in his 30s, and he was so passionate, had such a good pitch for himself that he convinced the leadership that he's the right person to take over. And he has a lot of faith, he has a lot of goodwill, and we are all excited to see what he will do in the company. And he's a success story that hopefully will motivate you. As long as you have the will, you have the energy, and you have the right mindset, the age doesn't matter. It's obviously easier when you're in your 20s, you have more energy and you don't have kids you have to look for. But maybe when you're in your 30s and you are in a senior position, your position, your initial stance is much stronger. You don't have to prove as much as an early junior. You will have the trust of your colleagues, you will have success stories, you will have a good career track, and people might want to support your growth in the direction you want to take just because they believe in you, at least in those healthy companies, those companies where the person is not a resource, but a living, breathing human being that the management, the upper management wants to invest in. And so that's my take on it. Okay, so let me moderate myself again and give you a quick rundown on the two last pieces of advice for the unicorns that I have written down. So the first one is to hunt for an internship, and that comes down to the fact that you need to identify the companies you want to work with and find their career pages, because internships and junior level position won't appear on the job board. They will be publicized internally on those career pages. For Microsoft, it's careers.microsoft.com. And the only way to be successful there is to be a frequent visitor, to catch if a program is opened, if a position is open, and be sure to be that first person who sends his or her resume. And resume is my second bullet point I need to tell you about, because, well, no one teaches you how to write good resumes. This is a very useful skill that's not taught, and it's a piece of document that can be easily done very, very wrong. And even today I was recording videos about resume for product managers for the YouTube channel. So let me just tell you the most important point here. Resume is not your career/education history document. It's a document that's supposed to prove that you are the right candidate for the position you're applying to. That means that regardless whether you do a storytelling resume, whether you use passive bullet points and you follow my advice or any other advice on how to build it, the most important thing is to look at the job ad, look at your initial template of the resume and always adapt one to the other, so that whoever reads your application is 100% certain that you are the man or the woman for the job. Otherwise, it's just pointless. And saying adapt your resume to the job offer you're applying to is the oldest, the best, and the most ignored advice in the industry. So, and I'm guilty of that too. Okay, I also spammed people with the same resume all over the place, though I knew that advice before I started giving it. But if you are serious about it, then just spend the time on making sure that your application is rock solid and don't put any emotional attachment to it. You can do everything right and still not be selected, or you can have a perfect process and still be rejected. If you start taking it personally, then you are your own worst enemy in your future successful applications. Every application is a learning journey that might or may not end up with a job offer. That's all. This is your mindset that will help you to endure the long time that might take you to land the job you want. And that's okay. This is how it works, unfortunately. Because you may lose your dream job because the person who will interview you had a bad day or doesn't have chemistry with you. Or the other candidate is simply a little bit better, and the people who will potentially hire you have to make that tough call, though it might mean the world to you. It shouldn't. It's just a job. There'll be another job. There'll be another take on it. That's nothing that should push you to some bad spot in your mind. Just make sure that you did all you can on your part. Present yourself as the best possible candidate and see what happens. That's something that hopefully will resonate with you, and I saved you at least a little bit of sadness in the future. But again, you can be the best candidate, you can have the perfect skill set, you can have the right position and still fail the job application process for the most random, silly reason. And like my favorite story is when I was rejected from a company that I applied for the second time, because the first time I was supposed to get an offer, but at the last moment accountancy pulled off the agreement to start the position. And even though I was already proven as a good candidate, on my second try, a few years later, when I had the excellent track record with this company as a potential employee, a hiree, I was rejected because some person during the application process that I talked to thought that I am a person who doesn't listen to the team and is like this product dictator who knows everything best and doesn't take any feedback, which is totally opposite to how I work. I prefer to sit down, hear out what everyone else to say, and then make a decision that I consult with everyone in the room. But just because a single person had this impression, it went to the document, and every single person that I talked to later thought that I am a dictator, just because I'm not afraid to make calls. And that's just hilarious on how bad impression influenced everyone else who talked to me. Oh God. And was it personal? A bit, but back then I was already mature enough to know that these things happen, and I tell it as a funny anecdote right now. Okay, we have 3 minutes. I can take the single question, And afterwards I wish you guys a very good day, because it will be evening for me when we're done in a moment. And I see Dante unmuted himself.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. So to me, what it seems like product managers are, they're strong generalists, not so much specialists, right? So I have the marketing side down, the distribution, not so much that technical. So I'm kind of wondering what basic technical I should build out to further strengthen my general knowledge.
I think that what you need to know is how tech in the current world generally works. How are cloud servers operating? How let's see. Okay, so the cloud aspect is very important, and also it's very important to understand the code, the digital product development cycle and steps. So you know what Git is, what is version control, what it takes to actually develop any code, because you don't need to know anything about coding yourself. You're not there to create any product yourself. You are there to make difficult choices, to decide which option out of the hundreds possible is the one that will bring you the most value in the shortest amount of time. And only and the familiarity with coding comes into hand when you talk to your team to understand their shortcomings, their blockers, and be able to transpire that into meaningful communication for everyone else, or try to push back if you think that they are not trying hard enough, because you understand what they are talking to you. But that's basically it. I always add that it would be fine if you taught yourself an SQL language, at least like the basics or medium level. This is way of asking database for, well, data, and some companies expect that from the product managers, and it can be helpful when you are doing some data analysis. And knowing about how AI works, what is machine learning, deep learning, how it operates, when is it useful, when is it just a tool that will require a lot of work and might not give you the right value back. This is really helpful.
Cool. Thank you
Right.
so much. And
Thank you.
feel free to connect with Bart on LinkedIn. I'm sure that he'll be very happy to help as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And I would like to thank Bart. I know it's late in the evening for you. And he also has a throat ache, but he managed to do the session for us. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Bart. And if you have any feedback on the coffee talks or any of the Product Calgary's event, do not hesitate to reach out to me or to Product Calgary directly in Slack or in Facebook or in LinkedIn.
Hey, Bart, I saw something really interesting today popping up on my LinkedIn feed. I want to share that with you as well. So I'm sure you might know Mayank Yadav, like lead product manager at Facebook Shops. I think one of the co-writers for Product Manifesto. So it seems like he is moving over to a startup as a director of senior director of product management. So that was really interesting, moving from a big corporation into a startup. I think that's a really interesting trend that I've seen a lot of people doing that, moving from big companies to startups, less bureaucracy, you have full ownership. So that's awesome.
That's actually, yeah, that's what's happening quite often, and it happens in gaming industries, big corporations. But I can see why that would happen, and I always think that this is a syndrome of the grass being greener on the other side. Because, like you said, when you are going to a startup, suddenly things get so quick, you can do so much more than in corporation, but at the same time it's a train that can easily collapse. There are dangers that the startup won't be successful. You suddenly have much more work and much more stress, and you'll be susceptible to many more dangers with the product, and like with privacy, with legal. You might be having the best idea in the world, but if you don't have the right people and the right approach and being cautious enough, you can just derail your work. And at the same time, if you are in a very stressful startup situation where everything has to be done yesterday because otherwise the client will leave you and the startup will collapse because lack of money, then going to a corporate setting where everything is triple, quadruple checked, takes forever to roll out, and suddenly you feel like you're on holiday, and that's no longer the same level of frustration and risk. So, well, maybe it also depends from people. And as I mentioned, I come from a small startup where I could have been in a situation where I would barely could keep my eyes open, and now I'm really enjoying working for big companies where you can take your time to make good decision, and you don't have this lingering feeling that your job can be lost and the whole company can be lost and lots of jobs can be lost just because you made a single wrong decision.
So I discovered product management towards the end of last year. I'm a project manager in a big telecom company here in Alberta. And when I discovered product management, I was Googling and researching, and I noticed a lot of people were doing MBAs, even though it's not required. I saw Diego's channel, and it's not really required, even though Diego did that. But what I observed was previously the trend was people who did MBAs, they went into consulting, investment banking. But now the trend is people who do that move into tech product management. So that's an interesting shift that I've noticed. So yeah.
This is actually like a bit of a case of self-fulfilling prophecy. I talked to head of recruitment for product in India because it was very interesting for me with those MBAs, because in Europe and America, no one does that to become product manager. It's all about what you know, what you can do, and no one cares about certificates or education. Like, if you go for a product management course, you might as well go to my Udemy course or take the product school $7,000 course, and they will have the same impact on your resume unless you have you'll be lucky enough to talk to product school alumni, so maybe then it will get you some favors. But in India, the same belief that I noticed was that the MBA is a open doors to product career, which at least to the people I spoken to from recruitment isn't. It's only meaningful if it's MBA for product management specifically, and there aren't many of those. And just any MBA doesn't cut it. You still don't have the experience needed. Product management MBA is next best thing to actual product management experience, but you are probably pretty off better if you just create your own product and try to get everything you need home alone and then amaze people on job interviews. At least this is my interpretation. This is what I noticed. But speaking to few people in the industry in foreign countries, not enough to guarantee that what I found is 100% correct.